Oh, hello, and welcome back to Rabbit Reads, where we are finishing our story of Metzengerstein. We left off here, but the tumult, without becoming suddenly more violent, with a compulsory exertion, he diverted his attention to the glare of ruddy light thrown full by the flaming stables upon the windows of the apartment. To action, however, was but momentary. His gaze returned mechanically to the wall. To his extreme horror and astonishment, the head of the gigantic steed had, in meantime, altered its position. The neck of the animal, before arched of its compassion, over the prostrate body of its lord, was now extended and full length in the direction of the Baron. The eyes, before invisible, now wore an energetic and human expression, while they gleamed with a fiery and unusual red, and distended lips of the apparently enraged horse left in full view his gigantic and disgusting teeth. Stupefied with terror, the young nobleman tottered to the door. As he threw it open, a flash of red light, streaming far into the chamber, flung his shadow with a clear outline against the quivering tapestry, and he shuddered to perceive that shadow. As he staggered a while upon the threshold, assuming the exact position and precisely filling up the contour of the relentless and triumphant murderer of the Saracen Berlifitzing, to lighten the depression of his spirits, the Baron hurried into the open air. At the principal gate of the palace, he encountered three something. With much difficulty, and at the imminent peril of their lives, they were restraining the convulsive plunges of a gigantic and fiery-colored horse. Pardon me. The mask is falling off, and it makes it hard to read. Whose horse? Where did you get him? Demanded the... Oh, pardon me. Whose horse? Where did you get him? Demanded the youth, in a querulous and husky tone of voice. And he became instantly aware that the mysterious steed in the tapestried chamber was the very counterpart of the furious animal before his eyes. "He is your own property, sire," replied one of the equerries. "At least he is claimed by no other owner. We caught him flying all smoking and foaming with rage from the burning stables of Castle Berlifitzing. Supposing him to have belonged to the old count's stud of foreign horses, we led him back as an estray. But the grooms there disclaimed any title to the creature, which is strange, since he bears evident marks of having made a narrow escape from the flames. The letters WVB were also branded very distinctly on his forehead," interrupted a second equerry. "I suppose them, of course, to be the initials of Wilhelm von Berlifitzing. But all at the castle are positive in denying any knowledge of the horse." "Extremely singular," said the young Baron, with a musing air and apparently unconscious of the meaning of his words. "He is, as you say, a remarkable horse, a prodigious horse. Although, as you very justly observed of a suspicious, untraceable character, let him be mine. However, he added after a pause, perhaps a writer like Frederick or Metzengerstein may tame even the devil from the stables of Berlifitzing. You are mistaken, my lord. The horse, as I think we mentioned, is not from the stables of the Count. If such had been the case, we know our duty better than to bring him to the presence of a noble of your family. True, observed the Baron dryly, and at that instant a page of the bedchamber came from the palace with a heightened colour and precipitate step. He whispered into his master's ear an account of the sudden disappearance of a small portion of the tapestry in an apartment which he designated, entering at the same time into particulars of a minute in circumstantially character, but from the low tone of his voice, in which these letters were communicated, nothing escaped to gratify the excited curiosity of the inquirers. The old Frederick, during the conference, seemed agitated by a variety of emotions. He soon, however, recovered his composure, and an expression of determined malignancy settled upon his countenance as he gave peremptory orders that a certain chamber should be immediately locked up and the key placed in his own possession. Have you heard of the unhappy death of the old hunter Berlifitzing? Said one of his vassals to the Baron, as after the departure of the page, the huge steed which that nobleman had adopted as his own plunged and curveted with redoubled fury down the long avenue which extended from the chateau to the stables of Metzengerstein. No, said the Baron, turning abruptly towards the speaker. Dead, say you? It is true. It is indeed true, my lord. And to a noble of your name will be, I imagine, no unwelcome intelligence. A rapid smile shot over the countenance of the listener. How died he? How died he? In his rash exertion to rescue a favorite portion of his hunting stud, he has himself perished miserably in the flames. Indeed, said the Baron, as if slowly and deliberately impressed with the truth of some excited idea. Indeed, repeated the vassal. Shocking, said the youth calmly, and turned quietly into the chateau. From this date, a marked alteration took place on the outward demeanor of the dissoluted young Baron Frederick von Metzengerstein. Indeed, his behavior disappointed every expectation and proved little in accordance with the views of many maneuvering mamma. While his habits and manner still less than formerly offered anything congenial with those of the neighboring aristocracy, he was never to be seen beyond the limits of his own domain, and, in this wide and social world, was utterly companionless, unless, indeed, that unnatural, impetuous, and fiery colored horse which he henceforth continually bestrode and any mysterious right to the title of his friend. Numerous invitations on the part of the neighborhood for a long time, however, periodically came in. Will the Baron honor our festivals with his presence? Will the Baron join us in a hunting of the boar? Metzengerstein does not hunt. Metzengerstein will not attend, were the haughty and laconic answers. These repeated insults were not to be endured by an imperious nobility. Such invitations became less cordial, less frequent. In time they ceased altogether. The widow of the unfortunate Count Berlifitzing was even heard to express a hope that the Baron might be at home when he did not wish to be at home, since he disdained the company of his equals, and ride when he did not wish to ride, since he preferred the society of a horse. This, to be sure, was a very silly explosion of hereditary pique, and merely proved how singularly unmeaning our sayings are apt to become. When we desire to be unusually energetic, the charitable, nevertheless, attributed the alteration in the conduct of the young nobleman to the natural sorrow of a son of the untimely loss of his parents, forgetting, however, his atrocities and reckless behavior during the short period immediately succeeding that bereavement. Some there were, indeed, who suggested a too hearty idea of self-consequence and dignity. Others, again, among them may be mentioned the family physician, did not hesitate in speaking of morbid melancholy and hereditary ill health, while dark hints of more equivocal nature were current among the multitude. I have no idea what any of this means. In the Baron's perverse attachment to his lately acquired charger, an attachment which seemed to attain new strength from each fresh example of the animal's ferocity and demon-like propensities, at length became, in the eyes of all reasonable men, a sickness or in health. Reasonable men, a hideous and unnatural fever. In the glare of the noon, at the dead hour of night, in sickness or in health, in calm or in tempest, the young Metzengerstein seemed riveted to the saddle of the colossal horse, whose interactable oddities so well accorded with his own spirit. There were circumstances, moreover, which, coupled with late events, gave an unearthly and portentous character to the mania of the rider, and to the capabilities of the steed. The space passed over in a single leap, and been accurately measured, and was found to exceed by astounding difference the wildest expectations of the most imaginative. The Baron, besides, had no particular name for the animal, although all the rest in his collection were distinguished by characteristic appellations. His stable, too, was appointed at a distance from the rest, with regard to grooming and other necessary offices. None but the owner in person had ventured to the opposite or even the entrance, the enclose of that particular stall. It was also to be observed that although the 3 grooms who had caught the steed as he fled from the conflagration at Berlifitzing had succeeded in arresting his course, but by means of a chain, bridle, and noose. Yet no of the 3 could with any certainty affirm that he had, during that dangerous struggle, or at any period thereafter, actually placed his hand upon the body of the beast. Instances of peculiar intelligence in the demeanor of a noble and high-spirited horse are not to be supposed capable of existing. Unreasonable attention, especially among men who daily trained to the labors of the case, might appear well acquainted with the sagacity of a horse. But there were certain circumstances which intruded themselves perforce upon the most skeptical and phlegmatic, and it is said there were times when the animal caused the gaping crowd who stood around to recoil in horror from the depth and impressive meaning of his terrible stamp. Times when the young Metzengerstein turned pale and shrunk away from the rapid and searching expression of his earnest and human-looking eyes. Among the routine of the Baron, however, none were found to doubt the ardor of the extraordinary affection which existed on the part of the young nobleman for the fiery qualities of his horse. At least none but an insignificant and misshapen little page, whose deformities were in everybody's way, and whose opinions were of the least possible importance. He, if his ideas are worth mentioning at all, had the effrontery to assert that his master never vaulted into the saddle without an uncountable and almost imperceptible shudder, and that upon his return from every long counted and habitual ride, an expression of triumph and malignity distorted every muscle in his countenance. One tempestuous night, Metzengerstein, awakened from a heavy slumber, descended like a maniac from his chambers, and mounting in hot haste, bounding away into the mazes of the forest. An occurrence so common attracted no particular attention, but his return was looked from with intense anxiety on the part of his domestics, when after some hours' absence the stupendous and magnificent battlements of the Chateau Metzengerstein were discovered crackling and rocking to their very foundations, under the influence of a dense and livid mass of ungovernable fire. As the flames, when first seen, had already made so terrible a progress that all efforts to save any portion of the building were evidently futile, the astonished neighborhood stood idly around in silent and pathetic wonder. But a new and fearful object soon riveted the attention of the multitude, and proved, however much more intense is the excitement wrought in the feeling of the crowd by the contemplation of human agony, than that brought about by the most appalling spectacles of inanimate matter. Up the long avenue of aged oak, which led from the forest to the main entrance of Chateau Metzengerstein, a steed, bearing an unbonneted and disordered rider, as was seen leaping with an impetuosity which outstripped the very demon of the tempest. The career of the horseman was indisputably on his own part, uncontrollable. The agony of his countenance, the convulsive struggle of his frame, gave evidence of superhuman exertion, but no sound save a solitary shriek escaped from his lacerated lips, which were bitten through and through into the intensity of terror. One instant, and the clattering of hoofs resounded sharply and shrilly above the roaring of the flames, and the shrieking of the wind another. And, clearing at a single plunge the gateway and the moat, the steed bounded far up the tottering staircases of the palace, and with its rider disappeared amid the whirlwind of chaotic fire. The fury of the tempest immediately died away, and a dead calm sullenly succeeded. A white flame still enveloped the building like a shroud, and streaming far away into the quiet atmosphere, shot forth a glare of preternatural light, while a cloud of smoke settled heavily over the battlements in the distinct colossal figure of a horse. So, that is the end of Metzengerstein. And it was only that much into the book. So, that will be the story from Mr. Poe's collection for now. If you would like to hear another, please let me know. But until then, I shall leave this one here. So thank you guys so much for watching this one. If you liked it, you know what to do. Keep things crazy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.